Welcome to uBook channel. Read and listen to the greatest stories that mankind has ever told. From Iliad to COVID terror, and other famous classics. Enjoy the best world literatures throughout history.
COVID terror. Copyright 2021 by Gerry de Cadiz. All rights reserved. A unified Al-Qaeda and Islamic State took advantage of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic in reinvigorating its jihadist cause for dominance and the re-establishment of a caliphate. Commander of the Armée d'Orient in the Mediterranean campaign of 1798, General Napoleon Bonaparte said, "The plague was ravaging the city, and that every day, more than 60 persons were dying of it. If the soldiers had entered the city, they would have brought back into the camp the germs of that horrible evil, which is more to be feared than all the armies in the world."
COVID terror. Chapter 14.
World Health Organization. Geneva, Switzerland. February 14, 2020. To Ellie's surprise, a high-ranking official escorted her to the office of the probationary chief learning officer of the WHO Academy. The school is a division of the World Health Organization that will function as a center for delivering advanced digital and classroom training to health workers and others around the world. "Welcome to the Academy, Dr. Grimwood." He motioned her to take a sofa fronting his table. "It's an honor to be invited here, Dr. F. Ellie replied. She is supposed to take an early flight to Kelowna International Airport, British Columbia, but she received an email from WHO, informing her for an appointment with the CLO in Geneva. "Currently, we are building a roster of experts, at varying levels of experience and expertise, to contribute to specific deliverables of the Academy's work. It's known in the WHO grapevine that Malas F-Warki, an Eritrean, is a confidant and close associate of the Director General. He's commonly seen by international observers as being part of any critical projects that the WHO undertake in many countries. Honestly, I was only trying to test the waters, if I will qualify. For now, my full-time job is in a laboratory that was tasked to help in the effort of formulating a vaccine for COVID-19. Saying these made her blush a little. She is true to her assumed character. The Emir's forgers and hackers did a good job of coming up with very glossy and foolproof documents from well-known universities and research centers. We did an initial evaluation of your curriculum vitae, and the selection committee gave a very favorable recommendation. Your credentials suffice our projected profile, so I can vouch for you. I really appreciate it, Doctor." Ellie expressed her gratefulness with a wide smile. It wasn't intentional that when she browsed through the WHO website, there was that open invitation for anyone to work with the newly created unit of the UN Health Agency. According to its website, the WHO Academy is a state-of-the-art training institution that aims to bring the lifelong learning revolution to the health sector, and reach 10 million learners around the world by 2023, to meet the targets set by United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We're looking forward of seeing you around. We intend to launch the first online courses in May 2021. I'm sure you'll love its futuristic campus in Lyon, France. Dr. F. Warki is very amiable, hoping to be able to recruit this distinguished American neuroscientist and microbiologist. The Academy was hyped as a globally accessible school for the future, combining the latest technologies in digital and remote learning, with advancements in adult learning science to offer innovative, personalized and multilingual training that meets priority needs. Of course, sir. I will really find a way to be part of your distinguished learning institution. It would be a new experience, so different from the grinding tasks inside a laboratory. She was motivated to be part of the academy, as an additional alibi of her global mobility and linkages with renowned personalities. It will also provide for her an access to sensitive information with the World Health Organization, that she can use in her project with the Khalifa. Although personally, Ellie knew that she's indeed qualified as an academician. But she cannot divulge her real educational background as an alumna of Massachusetts Institute of Technology and Brandeis University, with professional experiences, being a visiting professor of Wuhan University School of Medicine as well as research fellow of Wuhan Institute of Virology, as Dr. Amira Siddiqui. Just a whiff of her true identity among authorities, and in a matter of minutes, the Geneva Kantonspolizei, and even Interpol crack agents, will be around to arrest Lady Al-Qaeda. Ellie, I guess you were already informed of the good news from Switzerland and the Caribbean. Not just as a genuine businessman but also out of respect to Allah, he's always true to his words. He expects that anyone else having deals with him, will also keep their part of the bargain. The scientist is on her way to the US via Canada. To minimize the risk of exposure with authorities along the way, it was agreed that she'll fly from Geneva to British Columbia, and a very expensive border patrol agent in Al-Qaeda's payroll, will facilitate her entry to the United States. Yes, Amir. The deal is sealed. The prospect of setting foot again on US soil is unsettling for her. It was 4 years ago when she started her odyssey to China, with the hope of finding a professional career away from the prying eyes of American authorities. Ahmed is full of anticipation of the incoming activities. Your requested equipment and instruments are being delivered to the site. The technicians will wait for you before they install it. I am expecting that, Amir. Those machines need to be calibrated first to their appropriate settings. And nobody should open the reagents. A lot of chemicals, if not properly handled, will cause accidents and disaster. The original deal between Ahmed and General Gu was consummated, with the payment to her of $150 million in secret, numbered accounts. In exchange of this contract, Ellie agreed to enhance the pathogenicity of SARS-CoV-2, making it more potent and deadly. While on the way to the States, she started theorizing that the virus can be modified in such a way that it will be more lethal than its current strain. But how to measure its lethality in the first place? She opened her laptop and searched through Google. An article in National Geographic by Carrie Arnold succinctly explained how scientists know COVID-19 is way deadlier than the flu. Early in the outbreak, many people relied on what's known as the case fatality rate, the number of COVID-19 deaths divided by the number of confirmed cases. But this method became somewhat obsolete, once it was clear that many people can get the coronavirus, and never show any symptoms, so they are not being counted as confirmed cases. Now, after months of studying the pandemic's ebb and flow around the world, scientists are turning to a similar but more comprehensive metric, the infection fatality rate. This statistical tool uses data on known infections, including best estimates for undiagnosed and asymptomatic cases, to put numbers on how likely it is for an infected person to die from the disease. This kind of calculation is done every year for seasonal influenza. Scientists can use two strategies to estimate the infection fatality rate, explains Myrowitzkatz. They can estimate the number of infections using serology studies, which test people for antibodies against the coronavirus. These tests can reveal whether a person has been infected, even if they don't show symptoms. Or, researchers can use statistical methods to infer the total number of infections, based on what's known about the number of confirmed cases, and the estimates for asymptomatic infections. Using the handful of studies that have calculated infection fatality rates for seasonal flu, Myrowitzkatz determined that somewhere between 1 and 10 people die for every 100,000 that are infected. For COVID-19, that number ranges between 500 and 1,000 deaths per 100,000 infections. By his calculations, the coronavirus is likely to be 50 to 100 times more deadly than the seasonal flu, which supports the Columbia University findings. No need for a complex mathematical formula. The COVID-19 could be more lethal, if it results to a higher percentage of deaths per given population correlated with other diseases, like common colds or dengue. Dr. Ellie Cindy Grimwood made a note of this self-made principle in her electronic journal. "You've been a true brother to me." She sweetly cuddled as Ahmed embraced her tightly. "You know that I will do anything to help you," he replied. Lying in bed after an unhurried and delightful lovemaking, the couple reminisced their time together 17 years ago. "You haven't changed a lot, physically," Ahmed murmured while stroking her hair. The 3D mask was discarded for the meantime, as she's very secure in this house, since all employees are loyal brothers under the command of Ahmed. Amira smiled secretly. She was abused by her captors so many times, resulting to a bruised and skinny physique. But her alluring figure came back, when she started maintaining her body statistics while still working at Wuhan University. Her sexy persona in China was equated with some exotic yet beautiful image. A lot of male colleagues have been trying to make advances at her, but to no avail. It's been too long since she's in the arms of a man she loved. After her divorce, she thought that the Emir will ask her for a wife. But the difficult situation she's in at that time constrained her freedom, and made her decide to go overseas with her children, leaving Ahmed in the US with his fast-growing enterprise. "How big is this proposed project of yours?" she asked while looking at him intently. Amira got that charming look and radiant smile. Even in late 40s, a lot of people would agree that she's still gorgeous, with the timeless beauty of a strong and highly intellectual scientist. That would depend on how you packaged it. So far, he haven't informed her yet of the scope of their operation. It's still too early, for security reason. You've seen how deadly COVID-19 had become. I did not expect that it will victimize millions of people throughout the world, from its initial infection of Wuhan residents some months ago. With a mischievous smile, she whispered. I even have doubts that my experiment with the pangolin will be successful. What is worst is its pathogenicity that already claimed hundreds of thousands of lives, and the rate of increase is rising drastically. You need to do better than that. A measly 5% infection fatality rate is not something to be proud of in our work. Ahmed is reminding her of the ultimate mission that she has to abide with. The Khalifa had often postulated among his adherents and warriors, that when it comes to bioterrorism, like in case of COVID-19, the more infection and fatality there is, the better. Amir, the tanker is in its final approach to Flashpoint. Khalifa's operations officer advised. What is its kill zone? Ahmed can see from the combat monitoring control video of a tanker fuel traversing the highway, to an open-air market in the central Souk Ali area of Afrin, Aleppo Governorate in northern Syria. The truck carrying diesel-loaded barrels of highly combustible fuels, will carve a swath of an area in the market. That will burn and destroy any physical objects or people within its range. Abdul Najib confirmed. It's the holy month of Ramadan, and the market is usually full of shoppers, in the hours before Muslims break their daily fasts. Sir, the control is hot. Ayman Kalimov, the cyber warfare officer, pointed out to Ahmed that the Minsat program had locked on to the detonator of several improvised explosive devices, attached beneath the fuel tanker. At the tactical digital map system, the tanker and its peripheral objects were highlighted with a solid yellow-green frame. With a fluid motion of his hand, the Khalifa tapped the highlighted target profile. The Advanced Combat Direction System, which coordinated all commands and programs, lost its display momentarily. About 100 meters near Afrin's local government offices, the tanker fuel exploded with such fury, that business establishments were put to cinders and 42 people died of burns and trauma. Several hundreds of other bystanders were injured due to panic. Ahmed and his commanders saw through the MCM, thick black smoke rising above a residential area, with cars and food stalls on fire. They assessed the impact of their minsat-based firing mechanism. The violence was later called by the global media as the 2020 Afrin bombing. O Messenger of Allah! Proceed where Allah directs you to, for we are with you. Amir Ahmad Fadil remembered these Quranic words of Miqdad, one of the companions of Muhammad, when the Prophet held a council of war to review the situation and decide on a plan of action, in the upcoming battle against the Meccans. One of his prized book is, Muhammad at Medina. Written by William Montgomery Watt, it outlined the Battle of Badr in March 13, 624, which marked the beginning of the 6-year war between the founder of Islam and his tribe. Muhammad took keen interest in capturing Meccan caravans after his migration to Medina, seeing it as repayment for his people, the Muhajirun. A few days before the battle, when he learned of a Meccan caravan returning from the Levant led by Abu Sufyan ibn Harb, Muhammad gathered a small expeditionary force to capture it. Abu Sufyan, learning of the Muslim plan to ambush his caravan, changed course and took a longer route away from Muhammad's base at Medina, and sent a messenger to Mecca, asking for help. Abu Yal commanded an army nearly 1,000 strong, approaching Badr and encamping at the sand dune al-Udwatul Quswa. Badr was the first large-scale engagement between the Muslims and Qurayshite Mecca. Advancing from the north, the Muslims faced the Meccans. The battle began with duels between the warriors on both sides, following which the Meccans charged upon the Muslims under a cover of arrows. The Muslims countered their charge and broke the Meccan lines, killing several important Qurayshi leaders, including Abu Yal and Umayyah ibn Khalaf. The Muslim victory strengthened Muhammad's position. Medinans eagerly joined his future expeditions and tribes outside Medina openly allied with Muhammad. The battle has been passed down in Islamic history as a decisive victory attributable to divine intervention, and by secular sources to the strategic genius of Muhammad. The Battle of Badr was a critical point in the establishment of Islam. If Muhammad was defeated, the Medinans would turn their backs on him, and his preaching won't be believed upon. This battle, considered as the beginning of jihad, is the first known engagement that subsequent Islamic fundamentalists would base the justification of their words and actions. Classical to modern writers gave a general context of what jihad is, usually referring to any effort in making one's life conform to the guidance of Allah. In every conversation with his companions, Ahmad would always insist that Operation Zulfikar should not only be regarded as a struggle for the expansion of their religion and the realization of Islamic ideals. In its essence, it also involves a struggle against one's evil inclinations, conversion to Islam, and work towards the moral betterment of the Muslim community. However, in the next few weeks, jihad through Operation Zulfikar will be associated with war and violence. Ahmad set up a makeshift command center in his Californian Montague. The day of reckoning is getting nearer. The rest house and resort complex will become his base of operations when Dr. Amira Siddiqui commenced with their project. No one would ever suspect that an exclusive and high-class resort in a LA beachfront is actually the nerve center for an intended extensive jihadist mission known as Al-Fikr. He is determined that after more than a millennium, the failures of former caliphs will be rectified. The operation was codenamed after the famous sword of Ali ibn Abi Talib, the cousin and son-in-law of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who ruled as the fourth caliph from 656 to 661. Operation Zulfikar will be planned, launched, and operationalized right within the territory of the United States. True to its name, Ahmad and his holy warriors will become the sword that will pierce the heart of Americans in the initial volley of jihad. Lady Al-Qaeda will be playing a role that is very vital in the success of Operation Zulfikar, the final battle between the warriors of Allah versus the infidels. This is her realization during the night-long conversations with Ahmad. Amira pledged that the moment the laboratory will become operational, she can test how COVID-19 can be manipulated, to make it airborne and waterborne, for higher level of transmissibility. Every day, millions of people around the world are getting infected, with bacteria and viruses transmitted through the air, or getting ill after drinking a contaminated water. There is no reason that SARS-CoV-2 won't be transformed into a more pathogenic and highly transmissible strain. One interesting proposition came from an article, published as a perspective at the American Journal of Physiology, Lung Cellular and Molecular Physiology. Human microRNAs, or miRNAs, are short, non-coding RNAs with about 22 bases. They act to regulate gene expression, by their complementary pairing with specific messenger RNAs of the cell. That pairing silences the messenger RNA, preventing it from being translated into a protein. Thus, miRNAs are a fine-tuned controller of cell metabolism, or the cell's response to stress and adverse challenges, like infection by a virus. The miRNAs are only about 0.01% of total human cell and tissue RNA, while replicating viral RNA of a virus like the COVID-19 virus, may reach 50% of the total cellular RNA. If the COVID-19 virus has binding sites for specific miRNAs, and these sites are different from the binding sites for miRNAs found on coronaviruses that cause colds, the more pathogenic COVID-19 virus may selectively sponge up certain miRNAs to dysregulate the cell in ways that make it a dangerous human coronavirus. Taken together, the viral strategies to increase the endoplasmic reticulum membranes and endoplasmic reticulum folding capacity, and block unfolded protein response-associated translational attenuation, inflammatory responses, and apoptosis, are critical components for virus production. The hypothesis by the UAB and Polish researchers explains some other biological oddities of the COVID-19 virus. One is the varying susceptibilities to infection seen among patients, including a more severe morbidity and mortality for older patients. There may be individual differences among patient miRNA profiles, that COVID-19 virulence in aged patients may be due to a lower abundance of miRNAs, and this may be a contributing factor in disease severity. It can be done, Amira replied when prodded for an answer by Ahmed, if the current strain of SARS-CoV-2 can be modified. With some cans of cold lemon juice and cookies, they sit in the resort's lanai, enjoying the very colorful sunset of California. Because of her troubled past, this is the first time that she noticed the beautiful colors from a sunset. She used to teach physical sciences at Brandeis University, and knew in theory about this phenomenon. As the sun gets lower in the sky, its light passes through air layers. These layers are filled with dust and water particles, which causes the sun's light to bend as if through a prism, scattering the blue light in favor of reds, oranges, and purples. I have replicated a genome sequencing analysis of the virus, in order to come up with the portable media. I hope that equipment will be up to the task later on. The Emir assured her. It will. I followed your specifications, which cost a lot more than the generic equipment used in viral assay and quantifications. I am now familiar with the technique. And I intend to really enhance it, based on what I saw in my previous experiments. Not only that, she propagated the virus through her cosmetic kits in Italy. On the way to Switzerland and to the US, she would always find a way to dust off some virus-inoculated face powder, on areas commonly touched by people. There is one venture that I would like to propose. I think it will help further your objectives in Operation Zulfikar. The LA twilight creeps in, bringing with it the salty yet refreshingly cold air of the Pacific Ocean. A resort attendant turned on the lights. I might be interested. He encouraged her to go ahead. Amira looked into the distance for some time, then said, I received an email inquiring if I might be interested to venture on some new ideas. The sender hinted that he can access some papers, which I could use in my explorations. It could be a spam message. You should change your password from time to time. He savagely advised on how electronic mails became the breeding ground of advertisers. "I don't think it's a junk mail." The sender posted in the message my personal number. Somebody she may have acquainted with, wanted to play hide and seek for a certain business proposition with her. "Who knows your number?" Ahmed suddenly straightened in his seat. A look of alarm can be seen in his eyes when she looked at him. Anything that could point at him must be mitigated, or just like what happened to the general, be eliminated. "Usually, hotel staff where I checked in." She easily assuaged his worry. She faced him. "What I'm asking you is to use some resources, maybe certain brothers who can reconnoiter, and determine the sincerity of the sender." She touched his hand. "Although he wanted to be known as the broker, but I have a fair idea as to his identity. If what he's saying is true, then we can use him to advance our experiments. Maybe the guy wanted a few bucks in preparation for the rainy days." Ahmed smiled as he kissed her. Amira did not say that she had replied to the email, and the sender went into specifics. This recent development could elevate further her study on the coronavirus. According to the broker, a certain scientist did some experiments with the arenaviruses, the causative agent of the coca-listly disease, which ravaged Central America in 16th century. The nearly 15 million people lost in the epidemic were mostly natives, leading to contemporary accounts saying that the virus preferentially targeted native people, as opposed to European colonists. In his next email, the broker shared a comment which piqued Amira's interest as a scientist. The latest result of the research implied that the arenavirus can be fused with coronavirus by means of genetic engineering. Its main effect would be, aside from the inherent pathogenicity of the combined viruses, the hybrid strain can aim and infect a specific genetic trait, targeting a particular human organ, depending on the physiological profile of the victim. In short, this weapon is not about for a freewheeling pandemic, but rather, you can initiate a well-organized genocide. In the Ghurfat Al-Arb within Zulfikar Resort, Abdul Najib installed and tested the efficiency and effectiveness of the C6ISR equipment. The command, control, communications, computers, cyber defense, and combat systems and intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance technologies that cost nearly $500 million, enabled the AQ ISIS war room to be a command center that can sustain armed operations anywhere in the world. Remember the lessons of the ancient Crusades. Our forefathers defeated the Christians when they started to use the enemy's tools and tactics. The Khalifa continually reminds his commanders on the necessity of adapting the weapons and technologies, as well as tactics and strategies of the Americans, if they intend to accomplish their mission. There is always a maxim that the Khalifa scribed in every communication to his commanders. We will defeat the infidels through their own ways, by their own means, and in their own lands. Since last year, the C6ISR had proven its worth as reflected in various news reports worldwide, that the jihadist forces are regaining strength and renewed capabilities to carry out its missions after its setbacks prior to 2018. Most notable of the C6ISR is the Integrated Command System, a tactical digital map system and mission control monitor, in preparation for the upcoming operation that the Emir will launch. A critical and technologically advanced war room must be complete with all instruments for a centralized, automated command and control system for collecting and correlating combat information, while simultaneously directing the course of battle, or actively engage with intelligence and defense. An advanced combat direction system that has overall tactical controls of these systems has been designed as a mobile, remote, and active C6ISR for the Emir and his operations officer, anytime and anywhere they are during a battle. Are we set for the initial test? Ahmed walked inside the room, and surveyed the complex but seamlessly installed sets of equipment. Amir, we have an ongoing maintenance test on Minsat's downlink. It's nearing completion. Ayman Kalimov tapped some keys on the terminal, to show the progress bar at 85%. Minsat is the organization's communications satellite, in a geosynchronous orbit on Earth. It's a Cold War-era communications system, one of the scraps of USSR's Ministry of Defense space units, left untended and forgotten. Fully refurbished and functional, a mafia of former Red Army officers sold it to Ahmed 5 years ago, which saw its combat effectiveness as a communication and intelligence platform, during the 2014 ISIS offensive in Iraq and Syria. Its obsolescence is very advantageous in terms of security, since modern satellite detection systems rely on digital and cloud-based information processing, which has difficulty in matching with the signal through UHF television technology, rather than today's direct broadcast satellite. Simply put, it is flying out there in space with no one noticing it. Min is a shortened term for minaret, the tower from which the faithful are called to prayer 5 times each day by a muezzin, or crier. In the coming military operation, and directly connected to the C-6ISR systems, Minsat will serve a similar function, being a critical platform for battlefield information, and intelligence gathering of all jihadists' forces. Amir, the dummy target is ready. Abdul Najib took a seat in front of Asad's. As operations officer, he has a direct control of all battlefield actions through the ACDS. Ahmed tapped the screen of his smartphone and opened the Asad's app. He swiped his index finger on the biometric access system, the act reminding him of Tawhid, denoting the indivisible oneness of God. How do I know that I'm ready? He can see on screen 3 blinking dots, red, yellow, and green, similar to a traffic light. Above it are 4 panels of live video feed showing various scenes. Abdul explained. The app's functionality is simple. Yellow is to select any of the target that you see on video, while green is to shoot. If you changed your mind, tap the red dot to abort. The Emir placed his pointing finger at the yellow dot. Nothing happened. What's wrong? Sorry, I forgot to remind you that you should do it with your left index finger. Abdul apologized. My fault, Ahmed grinned. He recalled that the Asad's in a mobile app has an added security feature. Being dextra-manual, he uses most of the time his right hand in writing and in manipulating objects. To avoid accidental execution of commands in his mobile gadget, the weapon system assigned to the Emir was programmed to be activated by his left index finger only. He tapped properly the yellow dot and a golden square bracketed each of the video panel. After tapping his choice, the entire screen was filled with the moving image of his selection. The 3 dots in bigger sizes were repositioned in the center of the screen. The Emir's extensive linkage with some Pentagon top brass had given him privileges of acquiring state-of-the-art weapons system, similar to those used in U.S. military units, although at a price twice higher than normal. His phone fully functions as a CDS that is connected to the C-6ISR. The system provides the capability to identify and classify targets, prioritize and conduct engagements, vector interceptor attack units to targets, and exchange targeting information and engagement orders within the combat, and among different components in a tactical operation. In another terminal, Ayman synchronized the action in the Emir's gadget. As communications officer, his main role in any battle is to see to it that everything is accurately coordinated and all commands and messages were executed and delivered to its target receiver. In his computer, the video is clearer, showing a detailed profile and other critical information of the target. The satellite's 2-way communication system is showing a Carib said, a deserted fishing boat somewhere in the middle of the sea. Amir, the weapon is hot. Abdul pointed at the blinking green dot in his Asad's screen. Ayman secretly activated an electronic anti-satellite attack program. Usually called orbital jamming, he sent a contradictory signal, directly towards Minsat through his uplink station. Ahmed tapped the green dot to attack. The entire screen dissolved in pixels, simulating an actual explosion on the target. But after a second, the video came back, showing an intact and undestroyed target. What's wrong? Is there a system failure? He knows that for today's trial run, An actual target has been prepared, and the bomb should have been exploded upon his command on the acids. Ayman faced his commander and smiled mischievously. "Sir, we proved something else. That will happen to our weapon in an actual combat situation if the opponent would employ satellite jamming. When the com-off activated the jamming signals, it interferes with communications traveling to and from MinSat, by emitting noise of the same radio frequency, within the field of view of the satellite's antennas. The various frequencies in the satellite, mixed with each other and the original feed, is disrupted. Its effect is the failure of the MinSat transponders, to receive the intended signal in a particular channel. So, the bomb is not a dud. Ahmed is pleased with the way his lieutenants are doing their job. No, sir. You may try again, this time in a different mode. Abdul sounds like a training instructor to a neophyte jihadist, that he used to be. The Operov activated a program in his mobile phone, to direct a controlled reception pattern antenna with adaptive spatial filtering technique, that mitigates signal interferences. Hooking up with their satellite's global positioning system, the ISIS developed technology uses power minimization, to reduce the effect of jamming, so that the GPS receiver can continue to operate correctly. The null-forming system preserved the antenna's view of MinSat's GPS, while ignoring Ayman's interference, leading to a constant access of the satellite signals required to compute precise positioning. In this mode, MinSat's signal could pass through to its receiver on land, despite an active orbital jamming. Fire in the hole. The Emir raised his voice to indicate his intent to explode the bomb. Being one of the battle chatters in Counter-Strike, that very popular multiplayer first-person shooter video game, everybody is familiar with this warning, that an explosive detonation in a confined space is imminent. When Ahmed tapped the green dot again, the screen went blank. The computer terminals of Abdul and Ayman came alive with series of parameters, showing the progress of the Emir's command and its reception. At MinSat's battle console. A second later, the computers reverted to the terrestrial target profile, citing the activation of an electronic trigger to an explosive device. Somewhere in the Arabian Sea, a pail of mackerels and sardines were thrown back into the waters, when the fishermen tripped over it in panic. The explosion of a boat a mile off in their starboard was sudden and devastating. After a while, a message in white appeared in Ahmed's smartphone, "Target destroyed." A live video feed at the MCM came back, showing a badly mangled wreckage of a fishing boat, slowly sinking to the bottom of the sea. Dr. Guinevere Del Pilar is not used to receiving a VIP treatment. Flying in from Paris to Los Angeles International Airport, her attention was caught by a placard with her name printed on it. When she approached the two ladies holding it, one of them offered to retrieve her trolley bag from the carousel. "Dr. Del Pilar, may I see your passport, please?" An immigration officer approached. He gave the document a cursory look, then ushered them out from the arrival area, to a waiting BMW 5, a movie favorite quintessential and mid-sized executive saloon. The AI Med staff offered her some fresh fruits for refreshment. After a 15-minute drive, the car stopped at the entrance of one of the tallest buildings in downtown Los Angeles. "Welcome to Al-Hassani Industries. The company president requests for your presence, doctor." Gwen can guess that the person accompanying her is a mid-level manager, as everyone would greet them along the way to the elevator. The door opened at the 44th floor, and they entered a glass-encased and minimalist office space. A jovial executive invited her to join him, in the richly furnished office lounge. His face is getting famous with the press, as the world is gripping with the health crisis. Just recently, the WHO Director General through his deputy, specifically thanked this man via live broadcast on UN Web TV, for his support in the different projects of the health agency. There was no mention, as to what type of support was extended by Aaron Al-Hassani. After the preliminary introductions, Aaron motioned Gwen to follow him to an adjacent room. "This will be your office, Dr. Del Pilar," and the 2 ladies who accompanied you here will be your assistants. I thought I'd be confined in a lab. She's a little bit surprised of this adventure.
Barely 3 days ago, a direct call from Geneva ordered her to take a leave of absence from Institut Pasteur. A new laboratory and pharmaceutical company registered as AIMed requested WHO to provide the protocols for its formal establishment. The deputy DG tried to explain why she should be traveling to the US. You will identify also other necessary technologies for its full operation the soonest time possible. Prior to this call, she received an email of a WHO request, with an attached letter of consent from Institut Pasteur, an endorsement of the Philippine government, for Dr. Guinevere del Pilar to be assigned temporarily to AIMed laboratory. Gwen felt that the WHO official was very demanding. As an expert, we recommended you to be part of AIMed, and take the lead in the research and development of a vaccine for COVID-19. Thank you for watching. Write in the comments section for your request as to what book, usually from Project Gutenberg, you want us to feature in U-Book channel.
Click like to boost the rating of U-Book channel, make a comment for us for the improvement of our services, and share this video to your friends, with the copyright intact. Please click subscribe, and hit the bell button to be notified of new uploads from U-Book channel.